Hello, hola, and welcome to the Audacity of Joy podcast, where we answer the central question: what role does joy have in our work to promote justice, transformation, and healing? I'm your host, Jennice Chewlin, public health champion, entrepreneurial activist, affectionately named La Reina of Joy, and CEO of the workplace wellbeing consultancy, Chewlin Group. In this podcast, you'll hear from changemakers, creatives, and leaders who are using joy as a strategy for change, celebration, and challenge. Each episode offers real talk about burnout, recovery, and the courage to choose joy in spaces that often forget it. Listen to spark curiosity, reflection, and action. This isn't about ignoring struggle. It's about daring to imagine differently. It's a movement helping change makers rediscover joy as a tool for well-being, resilience, and healing. Because one thing for sure is that joy helps us hold both pain and the possibility. It builds capacity for empathy, creativity, and courage. The same tools needed in leadership and change making. Listen and subscribe to hear from leaders explore how joy shows up in their lives, work, and how they lead. Thank you to our sponsor, Chewlin Group, who is on a mission to bring the audacity of joy to transform organizations to become drivers of health and well-being, to build trust, collaboration, and impact. Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of The Audacity of Joy. I'm your host, Jennice Chewlin, and I'm excited to welcome our guest for today. We have Chris Chanyasulkit joining us, and Chris is a public health strategist, advocate, keynote speaker, and master connector who speaks both nationally and internationally about public health, literacy, civic engagement, and racial, gender, and health equity. She is a past president of the American Public Health Association, a mom of 3, a dog mom of 2 pups, and an avid reader. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and to connect with you because I know when we last met, it was at a really very large, of course, because it's APHA, the American Public Health Annual Conference, and that had, 13,000 other people. So it's nice to kind of connect one-on-one.
Yes, I always like to share with listeners how I met my guests, and that is exactly how I saw you up on a panel stage dropping wisdom with the group around women leadership and public health. And that is where you shared your experience with running for office. And I'd love for you to, we're going to get into that, but I just wanted to set up the premise for today is around asking the central question of, is there room for joy in our change-making work? And so with that, I'm wondering if you can share like your experience with what it was like to run for office.
Yeah. So running for office is, at least for me, has always been kind of terrifying. Whether it was running for a position in my local town's legislature, which is town meeting, as a town meeting member, or as an elected library trustee in our town, I feel like it's always nerve-wracking because I really believe it, in the sense that when someone goes to vote for you, they're making a decision. They're selecting one candidate over another. And that is essentially making a judgment. And then the mom and, inclusive part of me is like, we don't judge people, right? Like, let's be inclusive. Everyone's great. So then it's like this hard situation. And then I think it's also kind of really hard because for many reasons, which we could talk about forever, I think in particular women of color, there's imposter syndrome. There's, there's the awkwardness of having to talk about yourself and boast about yourself, essentially, to get people to vote for you. So in that way, it is always kind of, a little bit, it's scary, terrifying, I said, because I find it's always easier to talk about how great someone else is, right? Or your friend or another candidate that you support. But you have to talk about yourself if you want to run, so that the voters can know and make the right decision. So yeah, it was nerve-wracking. And it was, for me, very nerve-wracking because I see the American Public Health Association not just as my public health family and where I learned and started as a student member, but truly as this amazing brain trust and institution that is there for over 150 years for our nation's health, looking to let each and every person live their happiest and healthiest lives. But for me, that was kind of daunting to say, I'm going to run and try to represent, whether it was to be on the executive board or later as president of an association that I couldn't even, have ever imagined running for, let alone serving in that position. So I had to get over myself a lot. And it was really hard. But I guess I will say I had really great friends and family who said, this is right. And you can do it. Believe in yourself. And then also, I had a couple other experiences along the way on my journey where I started to realize you only live once. And what's the worst that could happen if you don't win this election? I don't win the election, right? It's not a, life or death moment or anything. So I decided, you know what, let's give it a go and have fun with it, which is kind of why I was really excited to be on your podcast because you talk about joy. And so for me, I was like, let's just have fun with the campaigning. Let's have fun and just be who I am because the voters are going to get me. They're going to, hopefully, if they want to vote for me, they're going to be okay with how I am because I can't change that. So I had fun with it. And for me, that was great. I made so many new friends while campaigning that I still literally text with today and made deeper friendships who are really now more of my chosen family through the campaigning. So it was hard. It was terrifying. But hey, get over yourself. What's the worst that can happen? And it's kind of what I always tell people is you will never win if you don't run.
I like that. There's so many things to unpack with that experience that you're sharing with us. Thank you. And then I'll say that like you took the play part of your campaign and when you won your election and you became the president, and I think you has shared you were the youngest ever APHA
At the
president
time.
at the time. And I watched a video where they interviewed you about that year's APHA conference, and you're like, we're bringing the play in. And you had different components of the conference that were so different from years past. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, of course, APHA and the annual conference is a really leading conference where you can hear firsthand research from those public health experts in the field. It is an amazing place where you can meet, authors of amazing books and journal articles and the publishers and everything else. But for me, I will say, having started as a student member and for time going, the APHA annual meeting has actually honestly, personally turned for me, not just for learning and research, but for me, it's I think of as like a big public health reunion, like a party for me. I love catching up with people because a lot of times, we're busy in our own lives. Like you said earlier, I got 3 kids, 2 dogs. Like, I don't know if we're coming or going half the time. Am I driving carpool today? Like, what are we doing? But when I'm at the conference, that's just me. And I get to reconnect with all of my friends who could be coming from Alaska, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Nevada, or somewhere outside of America. And that's so awesome. And we have that time. We can have those quiet conversations with coffee or have that fun dinner. And so for me, I was said, let's bring that play in because I also felt one, as a nation, we don't play enough. If you look at all other nations, we don't have paid time off like other countries do, vacations. I mean, heck, you can have a baby and surgery and someone can pass away and people are wondering when you're coming back to work, right? So as a nation, it is really hard and we don't play. And I think we lost a lot of that over time. We are all about productivity, getting things done. It has at one point become a badge of honor to talk about how little sleep you had, how much work you do, or how much multitasking you can accomplish, which even the research has shown multitasking is actually not productive or effective and in the long run. So I really wanted to bring back, so as part of my call to action as president was to play, read, and vote for health. And I started with play because we needed more play in our lives. We were also coming, dealing with the recent pandemic where people were not playing. Joy, like it was an afterthought, if it was even a thought at all, right? So for the annual meeting, I was so thankful to Natalie, Koo, and Jolene, and Ed Shipley, and everyone who puts that conference together at APHA because they were so nice about bringing that play in. So we had trivia night, which was so fun, and I am terrible at trivia. We had video games throughout the huge convention center. So it was really, for me, it was really cute to see, you'd come out and you'd see these really smart researchers, but they're like battling it out over Miss Pac-Man, right? You'd have a pinball machine somewhere, or you'd have people playing with a very giant Connect 4 set, right? We had games. I loved that. And then every president gets to have a reception, but my reception, I wanted it to be me. So we didn't just have a reception. We had karaoke and a dance party and good fun like that because that's who I am. And that for me was fun. And I remember singing right next to Arms Around, good friends, because the work is hard in public health. The work, the content, it is very hard. And if you can't find any moments of joy or play in it, you can't really sustain yourself to do the work for long term, and or you can't do it really well. So yes, throughout the conference and in kind of everything I do, even now because I realized that I used to work too hard, too long, was multitasking, and I missed so many moments with my children in particular. And you can't get those back. So now I'm on You Only Live Once, Play for Health.
That's wonderful that you unpack that because it's relatable, Chris. We all have our story of like when we lost sight of joy, delight, confidence, play. We all have that story. And then when we hear other people of what their loss of moment was and then their aha moment, I think that helps people bridge the gap of it's possible to bring play into this hard work that you've identified. So, could you share, Chris, with us what are your rituals?
Yes. So in general, I guess I would kind of say it's all the same. Like I kind of approach it all the same way because as many people doing lots of different things throughout the day, you're not, it's not like I just do something from 9 to 5 and then I start something else, 5 to 10 or whatever. My days kind of blended throughout. And so I approach it all sort of the same way as trying to figure out how can I do my best work in a way that allows me to keep wanting to do it, to want to wake up the next day to jump in and do it again. And so I used to like hardly ever sleep. I used to drink coffee, like water, and, just all these things. And I wasn't taking care of myself because I just needed to do more faster for others, I thought. And so not to say that, I still serve in so many different places and spaces and I love it. But now I'm really more intentional about things. So for example, I am honest with folks and I'll, not schedule a meeting maybe at 9 o'clock at night because I'm tired at 8:30 at night. I do my level best to really prioritize sleep. For me, my health needs it. I never knew how important until a neuro ICU doctor told me how critical rest and sleep is to your brain health. So I sleep. And it's hard to say these things because I feel thankful and I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to sleep. For example, when I know looking out across our nation, most people don't have autonomy over when they sleep and what they can eat and do because of maybe lack of access to transportation, or they're working a shift job and they have no autonomy over their schedule, or maybe they can't take in fresh fruits and vegetables and proteins because gosh darn it, it's expensive. And it's hard to get. So I do feel really grateful that I can do so. And so with that, gratitude, I try to prioritize those things so that when I do show up to do the work that I'm doing, I am fresh, I am firing on all cylinders and I'm giving my best self. I also feel like, we can just see it, when someone's hangry or cranky or grumpy, they're not doing their best work. They're not interacting with people in a way that will lead to even better work. And so I try to do what I can to bring my best self and keep myself in that way. But, recognizing that I have so much gratitude for, say, the ability to go to bed at night, and things like that. I take walks with my dogs when I can, although right now I have mountains of snow. And it's actually kind of hard to pass through. Take a break. And when I say play, I don't mean you need to be a part of some community pickleball or whatever. It could honestly be taking a walk. It could be doing a puzzle. It could be reading a book for fun,
Yep.
not a book just for learning. And maybe for learning is fun for someone out there, and I'm sure it is. But for me right now, I am just diving into thrillers. So to read for fun, to do something, to give yourself those moments, to not just eat at your desk while you're working. Maybe eat outside if you can, or eat while reading a book for fun, or eat and have a conversation with another friend. That would be even better. So I try to do all of those things to block out those times and to also just realize that not everything is critical. So for example, this is terrible. I used to be the person who sent out holiday cards the day before Thanksgiving in the hopes that you would receive my holiday card the day right after Thanksgiving. That has gone to the wayside. So now there's no holiday cards. I actually think I have some holiday gifts that I want to give to my neighbors that are still in my dining room right now. And we are approaching March. So I feel very terrible. But, I was like, I can't get to it and I can't get to it in the way I want to. And it'll be okay because that's not super critical. I am not trying to transplant a kidney, for example, right? And to just realize that I can't help others as best I want to if I can't take care of myself and if I'm not.
Yeah. That's a common theme, right? It's to the point of like I have to fill my cup first before I can
Yeah.
fill others. And I hear you like, you're a public health champion. You know what it takes to be healthy, to stay healthy, and you're also honest that hey, I myself wasn't doing that. I was lacking sleep, it was impacting my relationships, my movement, and now I've learned that if I want to stay in this work and stay in the game, I'm going to, you said, sleep is important to you, eating well, making time for connection, and play having a variety of definitions from reading to actually eating lunch, not at your desk in front of your computer. And I'm sure it changes in seasons. I think we get caught up in like having a definition and forcing it to work in every season of life that we're in or season of the year. And I think it's important to talk about like being flexible. You just shared how one of the other rituals for yourself is around managing expectations. And that's flexibility too, right? Like saying, I don't need to send a card this year, or I'm going to save that neighbor gift for the next holiday or a birthday now at this point. And I think folks need to hear that. And I love how you're talking about like how you sustain yourself. Can you share a little bit more about your work? What excites you about your work at the moment?
Yeah, so there's actually quite a bit that excites me. I mean, there's a lot that doesn't excite me because we're working in public health, of course. But I think what is really exciting about advocacy and public health in this place and space, in this time right now, is that people aren't giving up. If anything, people are digging their heels in, calling more people into the field, trying to figure out better ways that we can really get our nation back to a healthier nation, despite what's happening at other levels, whether it's the national level. So, for example, for me, I've always said this when I say to play, read, and vote for health. When I tell people to vote for health, I don't tell them to just vote in your presidential election, which obviously matters. But a lot of it is trying to underscore that health is on the ballot all the time and that you should also vote in your local elections, your town, your city, as well as your state, county. All of that really affects your health because if you look right now, for example, if your trash doesn't get picked up, if schools aren't open, we learned all of this in the pandemic, then health is impacted because public health is everywhere. Public health is access to food and vegetables. It is safe transportation. It is a healthy environment and addressing climate change. So I've always said, it's important. Even though there's so much happening at the national level, what I am sort of more inspired by now is that everyone is trying to figure out what can they do, where they are, and how to do it. So I've loved it. I'm doing a lot more now with my local community. I work with our local philanthropy group, the Friends of Brookline Public Health, which is basically this great group that helps to raise and organize money to support our local health department. Because who out there has a health department that they feel is overfunded? That doesn't exist, right? We try to do what we can. And what we've also done is we realize, of course, there's misinformation and disinformation and just bad information, really, right out there. So we just launched a podcast talking to you about podcasts because, like what you do, we wanted to be there and meet people where they are so they could listen to us and get some really good information because, yes, vaccines are safe and where to go get them in our community for free. And if for some reason you're in my community and you can't get it, we'll call us and our health department can send someone to go give you a vaccination at home, for example, and all those services. So I love the fact that now we're digging in at a very local level. And that is giving me inspiration and encouragement to keep on going on a day-to-day basis because I believe that is just paramount to making it through.
And so you took the model of Friends of the Library, sounds like, doing Friends of Public Health. That's so unique. I haven't heard that yet. Did you come up with that model? Because I
Oh
know you're a big
goodness,
fan
no.
of the library. Tell me where else
No.
you saw it and you're like, I think we can model it here.
No, not at all. I would never pretend to do that. So, our Brookline Friends of Public Health has been around for 25, almost 30 years now. And it started years ago by an amazing doctor, Dr. Jacques Carter, who created this because he also saw that there is a need to support our local public health department. There are things that they can't do. They don't have enough staff and time and money to do these things. What can we, as town residents and neighbors who care about our community's health, do? And so it got started. And you can be a member of our organization. You don't have to live in Brookline. And they do a lot of often community and education programs throughout the year. And I got to get involved because I think I needed this local connection because of what was happening and I was reading and seeing in the news on a national level. So I love it. I get to work with my neighbors and friends on programs, whether it's the podcast or, for example, at Thanksgiving, we helped to collect turkeys and food for families who wouldn't be able to celebrate Thanksgiving otherwise because everything is so gosh darn expensive. Or right now, we continue to help our health department with collecting diapers for both children as well as adult incontinence products because everything is so expensive that it is gut wrenching to think about families who cannot have a clean diaper on their baby and the health impacts of that, or similarly, adults who don't have access to adult incontinence products. Like that is, I mean, let's give folks dignity, right? So for me, it's been great. But yes, there is a Friends of Brookline Public Library, and there are friends groups in all communities, I'm sure in yours too, for your public library. And it's the same thing. I've never met a public library that was so over and well funded that they could do everything they wanted to. In my town and probably many other towns and cities, your city and town's budget, very little of it goes towards the library or the health department. And that pays for the staff, the lights in the building, the printer operating and things like that. But to do anything beyond that really comes from, in the case of our library foundation and our friends, the programs, the access to e-resources, the games, the library of things, all these other things come from somewhere else, come from great community members. So in Brookline, for example, we have seen so many people without the necessities to live and just food. So our group, the Friends of Brookline Public Health, has been working and supporting gift cards to our local supermarkets so that when people come to our health department and are in need and do not have the money to literally buy food for themselves or their family, they can get a gift card because nobody should go to bed hungry.
Yeah, I mean, and you're talking about this is the real serious side of change making work. And I'm a public health champion, library champion, meaning I love these things. I get how they interact with our life and how vital they are. And I'm proud, and what gives me delight is my partnership and collaboration with even my local library, bringing in bilingual story time for them, because again, that's access, right? To have folks in the library who maybe typically wouldn't come in but want to experience the library. And then also in my group, I'm part of a parent-led group called Nashua Family Network. And the premise is to help improve the social network of parents and to have kids who know other adults in their lives who care for them too, and for us to work together to thrive. And the library is a huge partner of ours, and we couldn't do our work without them and our local United Way and other parent-led groups. So I just love the layers of collaboration. And at the end of the day, it's care and action, right? And then to me, it turns into, then it's the audacity of caring and doing, because of the climate we're in right now. It feels like there's loss of hope, desperation or giving up. But everywhere I turn are corners and pockets of humans doing good work together. And I think that's for me, the takeaway, even in public health, in change making work, is that it's done together.
Absolutely. And I love to hear all that you're involved in because that's important. I mean, we are in a nation where our government and institutions and society is not set up to support health and wellness, communities, family, older adults from young babies. Like, there just isn't that social safety net that, we don't have those wraparound services as a nation fully funded. We do not. Right? Yeah, in other countries, they do. I was just in Norway. It's beautiful and everyone is so happy there, even despite all that rain I saw, which they call liquid gold. They're
Hmm.
just so optimistic. Right? So we don't have that. So we have to do all of this as a community. It is literally critical. And unfortunately, it's critical. But if we have to do it, let's do it with joy. So many of my now chosen family are people that I met because I just happened to volunteer on something with.
Mm.
I am forever grateful, and my life has completely changed by the people that I've met through doing that. And we need to have those moments of joy and celebration with each other in these groups where we are doing the hard work, or you will not want to keep going.
I love that. Chris, we've said it a lot. We've talked about rituals of joy. We've talked about, why it's sustaining. I ask every guest to define what joy means to them. Could you do that?
Totally. So it's funny when I saw your question earlier about joy and what it means. So I guess I think of joy differently as a lot of people think of joy as like fun and excitement. Like, of course, riding a roller coaster for me can be fun, or going on an aqua coaster, or, I just tried zip lining for the very first time for myself last week, and that was fun. That was really
Okay.
exciting. But I guess I kind of see joy differently because you can't have fun every moment of every day of every life. Like, I'm not ziplining every day. I don't know when I'll ever do it again, right? But really, for me, joy has been more of a sense of purpose, a sense of contentment, and feeling good about what I am doing and engaging in. And so that's how I see joy. It's kind of the why for me. It's like, why am I doing this? And is the doing of it bringing me connection and contentment? Do I feel heard? Am I hearing others? You were talking about collaboration with United Way in your library. I actually used to be in AmeriCorps Vista with United Way years ago too. And, it's this collaboration, this trust, this coming together, these connections. For me, all of that is really contentment and knowing that I belong, that I have a family here that I'm doing great work with. And for me, that's joy. Yes, I love the fun, there are fun moments in our work, right? For example, one of the groups that I work with that does a lot in Asian American advocacy, we are going to be celebrating with a hot pot to celebrate the new Lunar New Year. And that I am sure will be fun and very delicious. But we don't do that every day. A lot of days
Right.
we are sitting and planning a program where we're going through all the logistics, which may not be fun. So for me, joy really is about finding your sense of purpose, finding contentment, knowing that you are doing your level best, but that it's also being appreciated and accepted and that you belong in that space.
I love that description of it. And I think it's right on target because it's yours. It's your definition. And what other listeners will get from that, what I hope is that you have to personalize what delight means to you. It could be a soft hum, it could be loud, right? And that's the point. It's all of those things. And I often will say that I'll use the feelings wheel chart to describe that, like, joy is just a sliver. And then there's other adjacent feelings like confidence, empowerment, pride. And
Yeah.
let's get comfortable with that too and be okay that that's what it is. Because this work is ongoing and will continue to change. And if we want to be a part of it, we have to think about those ways to sustain ourselves. And not just that, but like be audacious in saying, and that's what I hear from you, Chris, is that like you're like, this is who I am. When you elect me, when you vote for me, it's all of me and how I show up. And that's what you're going to get. And I think that's the audacious part, the courage to show up, make room for all of you and for the opportunity to bring people in as well.
No, it's good fun, right? If you can't laugh at yourself, if I take myself too seriously, that is not good for anyone.
Right, right. Same. I always say, like, if it's not fun, don't invite me. If it's not fun, I'm not going to do it. I have another guest who says, but joy first. Like that was a pillar in one of their organizing. They were planning up an event and they had a pillar like, but first joy, to always like make the work go through that lens of like connection, between each other for this work. So there's so many ways to do it. And I really appreciate all of the insight that you shared with our listeners.
I would just to say for everyone to remember for good health, not just for you and your own personal health or your community health, but for really everyone's health, is to play, read, and vote for health.
Love that. Thank you, Chris, for being on this podcast. I can't wait for others to listen to all the golden nuggets you shared. And I ask the listeners to continue listening, share, like, and subscribe. Share with a friend who you think might need some inspiration around bringing in play. Thanks, Chris. Listen and subscribe to hear from leaders, explore how joy shows up in their lives, work, and how they lead. Thank you to our sponsor, Chewlin Group, who's on a mission to bring the audacity of joy to transform organizations to become drivers of health and well-being, to build trust, collaboration, and impact.